Hey there! In this lecture, we're going to dive into basic prompting, otherwise known as zero-shot prompting. It might be considered basic, but believe it or not, it still outperforms humans in many areas. That's especially true when we're talking about language models trained on tons of data, like ChatGPT, which is the one we'll be using. First things first, you'll want to make sure that you're logged into ChatGPT so you can see the chat interface just like I do. I'm using the ChatGPT Plus plan that you can sign up for and pay for monthly as well, which you can see here. It has some cool perks like access during peak times, faster response times, and priority access to new features, but don't sweat it, you'll still be able to access everything I have on the free plan. So here's how I'll be structuring this lecture on zero-shot prompting and the following lectures in this section. I'll start with a little intro, like the one you're listening to right now. Then I'll enter a prompt for that lecture, like a zero-shot prompt for example. Then I'll break down the prompt, making it super easy to understand, and after that, we'll do another prompt for a different use case and I'll explain everything as I create it. At the end of the lecture, you'll have a chance to try it out for yourself with mini projects that follow each prompting lecture. That way, you can practice your new skills. Alright, let's jump into our first basic prompt, zero-shot prompt engineering. So let's give our zero-shot prompt a whirl in ChatGPT and see what we get. For example, let's enter create a list of 10 books similar to 1984 by George Orwell. Maybe you're a big fan of this book like me and want to find more gems like it. So I'm going to enter this prompt and in no time, ChatGPT will come back with some fantastic suggestions. We're working with a pre-trained model here that's been fed data from a long time back. And that's why we can use a zero-shot prompt like this. But remember, we're working with a pre-trained model here that's been fed data from a long time back. And that's why we can use a zero-shot prompt like this. But remember, it can't learn new things, so it won't know yesterday's news, for example. Now, ChatGPT generates outputs like this by making connections from its data and then predicting what the next best letter or word is. The clearer our prompt, the better the answer we'll get. So be as descriptive and specific as you need, mentioning details like length, format, and style. This way, you'll get the best possible output from your zero-shot prompt. Okay, let's take a closer look at the zero-shot prompt that I entered into ChatGPT. Even though it's a simple zero-shot prompt, getting the hang of its components is super important for nailing effective prompting. So to begin, did you notice how I told the AI what to do instead of asking it? So here's the prompt at the top, and like I said, make note of how I told the AI what to do rather than ask it something to do. That's key. When you're working with large language models like ChatGPT, being assertive with your commands makes a big difference. Now let's break the prompt down into its 4 main parts. So the task is pretty clear. Create a list of books similar to 1984 by George Orwell. In this case, the whole prompt is the task, since we're dealing with a simple zero-shot prompt. Second, input, we have none here. We're using a pre-trained model that's already capable of performing the task we want. If we needed to summarize a page from the book, we'd then obviously provide the text and that will be the input. Third, output, what we want is a list of 10 books. We're asking for a list of these 10 books that are similar to 1984. And finally, the fourth item of a prompt is context. And there's none here really. we're using a pre-trained model, so we're assuming it's already got some knowledge under its belt. We're not building a model from scratch in this course. Instead, we're taking advantage of existing models trained on heaps of data. But I want to hold on for just a minute, because there is a subtle hint of context in this prompt, even if it's not extremely clear. So, by mentioning the author's name, George Orwell, we're giving the model some direction and specificity. If there were a romance book with the same title, this little bit of context would help avoid mix-up. Remember, the whole point of context is to steer the model in the right direction, thus minimize errors. Speaking of errors, in the world of AI, they're called hallucinations. These happen when a model basically makes something up. Hallucinations can be pretty convincing, so it's important to double check the output to make sure you're getting accurate and reliable information. Now, what I'm going to do is show you another example of a zero-shot style prompt. And as I type it out this time, I'll break it down so you get a grasp of its components and why they're important as I'm typing the prompt out. So buckle up and let's dive deeper into zero-shot prompting with this new example. So I'm going to start by typing convert the output into a table and then enter a full stop. In this case, ChatGPT's task is to transform the previous output into a table format. It's a good idea to kick off prompts like this with the instruction first, not after any context. Remember, our goal is to be crystal clear, so putting the instructions up front is the way to go. Let's keep defining and specifying the task as we write our prompt. So what I'm going to do now is enter column 1 for index. Here, we're saying that we want column 1 to have the index and be titled accordingly. Then I'm going to enter column 2 for title. Now we're specifying that in column 2, we want the book title and for it to be labeled as such. Moving along, I'm going to write column 3 for author. In this part, we're saying that we want column 3 to show the author's name and be titled accordingly. And then I'm going to write column 4 for description. And just like before, we're specifying the column, but this time we're telling the model that we want column 4 to have the book description and for it to be labeled as such. And last of all, I want to enter the following. Column 5 for emoji representing the book. Now I'm going to go back and just capitalize the D for description and then for emoji representing the book. And the reason I'm doing this is not because of some strange grammar rules that I have, it's just that I want to make it easier for you to read as I'm creating the prompt. So I'll also do like here, so we have column 1, column 2, column 3, column 4, column 5. So if you're obviously watching this lecture, it's just easier for you to look at this prompt and see column 1 index, column 2 title, column 3 author, and so on and so on. So I hope that helps. So now that we've crafted the prompt and outlined the task with all the columns, let's dive into the elements of this prompt before I hit enter. So in this prompt, the input here is the list of 10 books that ChatGPT generated for us earlier. You can see it right here just under our initial prompt. So we have Brave New World, Fahrenheit 451, and so on. So this prompt is a perfect example and a perfect demonstration of using an input in a prompt, which is something worth noting. And the cool thing about ChatGPT is that we don't need to ask it for books again. So we don't have to say create a list of 10 books, then convert them to a table and do column 1 for index and so on and so on. The chat window kind of works like a brain where it remembers everything that came before it. You'll see how this gets even more powerful as we dive deeper into this section. But for now, I just wanted to make you aware of that distinction. The output, of course, for this prompt is pretty straightforward. We're looking for a nicely formatted table that has 5 columns, each holding a different piece of data. And as for context, there's none in this prompt. Now, when we hit the submit, you'll see how accurate the reply is. And thanks to our clear instructions, the best part is that it doesn't take too long to generate the response that we want. So that wraps up this lecture on zero-shot prompt engineering. I hope you enjoyed this introduction to the world of prompt engineering. We covered one of the most basic forms here, but trust me, as we dive deeper into different prompts throughout this section, everything here will be implemented in those prompts. Now, before you dive into the next lecture on a different style of prompt engineering, I invite you to join me in the assignment which is next, where we'll tackle a mini project. I'll see you there.